Welcome back to some more Create Integrated. Now, over the last few days, I have been slightly sick. And so in that time when I wasn't able to record, I was like, you know what? I might as well start clearing out some land and also prepping an area for another factory in the future. After getting the landmass in, I was like, you know what? Let's go ahead and start building at the foundation around our Ars Nouveau area. And I wanted to start with some basic brick, basically the same thing that I used for our last build. Then this is where things started to get a little bit wild. I wanted it to feel like almost magic was like pouring in from the top of the building, taking over from the top and working its way down. And that's where I came up with using some of the dark Ars purple, blending it into the lighter Ars purple, and then ultimately blending that in with some more industrial looking materials and making sure that this roof was nice and textured. And at the end of it, I think it turned out pretty darn nice, and definitely kind of took me back for a second, as I've never really built with purple colors in the past. So now the Ars build is basically done. Well, for the most part. I did add some fun things on the outside. And now, like he said in the time lapse, I was incredibly sick while I was working on this build, and I wasn't able to actually record because I couldn't talk very well. But the good news is I am getting better and I am able to actually talk. While not at 100%, it's getting there. I wanted to clean up the face area too, so I went ahead and moved my charger back over here. So kind of got it out of the way and just connected it up into the main center structure. Also, over here, these are the tanks that are supposed to look like they're holding Source. At least that was the idea behind it. And I even put down some liquid Source down here, or sauce. Now you may notice like there are some spinning things. I just placed some water wheels on the side, and I really wanted to have starbuckles where they looked like they were actually working as part of the building. And I was able to use some planks from some nearby trees that were actually purple. The mauve trees, I do believe they're called, that are right over here. I was able to incorporate that by just simply clicking on their plank onto here to change the actual color. This turned out really nice. And while I was working on this, look who showed up. Gasket. We got a new friend. Gasket the otter ended up showing up, and so I gave him a lovely little seat to sit on. And you can make any mob for the most part, so long as it can be leaded, set on a seat by simply clicking a lead on it and then clicking on the seat, and it will jump to the seat. But the building's up and running. What are we going to be working on today? Well, I have some plans. This has all generated and completely filled up all of these containers in the process of getting the build done. I even added some display cases on the top from Ars just to give it some added flair. But I've got some more plans for some more Ars stuff today. We need to unlock more spells for our spell book and come up with some pretty powerful spells that we can use in our world to help us out. For one, I would love to use some damage spells and things like that to help us when we have some strong enemies. But some other things I wanted to mention, look at this. We got these sconces. If you do want to place these and light them, you need to have your Ars spell book and then make a spell that has touch and conjure mage light, and you can click it. And however you customize your mage light, like I mentioned before with your spell styles, well, that will actually determine what is on top of the sconce. Not only that, but there's also these little lanterns that can also hold these mage lights. Pretty darn cool. Now today I want to get back onto the task at hand, and that task is the codex entries. So I need to start working on these, and this is why we actually set up all of the essences, because we are going to need all of the essences in order to make all of these individual codex. This is what's going to make unlocking all of the glyphs a whole lot less tedious. And that was sort of my idea when I was developing the mod pack. See, an issue that I find with Ars whenever I play mod packs over and over again is the unlocking glyph process. There's so many glyphs and there's so many you have to unlock that it becomes such a tedious thing to need to do over and over and over again every time you decide you want to try a new mod pack. So this go around, I wanted that process to be a lot different. And so instead you get this random choice from these codec entries, or I guess I shouldn't say choice. You get a random selection every time you click one of these. And the bonus is, even after you've unlocked all in that tier, well, they just start to turn into XP. So you just start to get XP from these entries as well. Very handy, and specifically in the manual, sort of XP farm way. Now, back here, we do have our farm that has been running, and I also planted some sugarcane. And the cool part about using the Just Dire Thing farmland is you can also plant sugarcane on the actual soil, and it also auto harvests. Very cool. But I am really after this Mage Bloom. I've just got to mosey my way through our lovely path. I love that this is all like growing and expanding. Ah, it is so nice. But I'm going to run over here to my crushing wheels and to drop this in. And this gives a ton of material. Look how much Mage Bloom fiber you get from this, which is so much better than the normal way, which only grants you 4 in a crafting table. And this stuff is really useful. Like you can use it for all kinds of stuff. Not only is it used for upgrading our gear and parchments, but it is also used in making Mage Bloom blocks, which have a ton of use cases. Like you can make it look like a skybox. You can make it invisible. There's all kinds of fun things you can do. And yeah, you're really missing out if you can't like make these blocks. And it is normally pretty difficult to make these Mage Bloom fibers. Now, by the way, as we continue to carry on in today's episode, I would love to hear some feedback from you guys. Like, what do you think about this build style? Is it too much? Is it too little? I had a hard time trying to blend the purples together. And I think, though, at the end of this, it turned out really good once I added all of the stuff around it. But man, I was really struggling when I was putting it together, trying to figure out how do I get this purple color to fit in with brick. And yes, I wanted it to feel like it was almost kind of growing, like magic was growing onto the building. So yeah, I love reading you guys' comments, so definitely comment down below. Now for this, I am going to need quite a bit more sugarcane than I'm currently producing because we are going to need a lot more scrolls. And so I did want to show this off. If you make a pulse timer and you set it to like 2 ticks and you use some SNAD, you can grow sugarcane very quickly, by the way. And if you add a combination of like a simple block breaker, for example, and then you give it something to break, it doesn't really have to be anything. You can have it break with sugarcane and set this to every tick. Well, then you just quite literally are producing a ton of sugarcane just in an area. And then you can use the Just Dire collector over there to collect all the drops. But in this case, I am going to set this to high on the redstone signal and only use it as needed. So that way I can use a redstone signal to turn this on and off. But to unlock all of the tier 1 glyphs, I plan on making like a stack of these. I think that's going to be probably more than enough. But we are going to need earth essence, air essence, and fire essence in order to do this. So there is our air essence, earth essence, and fire essence. So now I have all of those ready to go. And I already have all of the machines made. Dowsing rods, however, I am going to need a whole bunch of these, and they do not stack. So that is something to note. By the way, these do have durability, and they're kind of cool, as they do grant you the ability to sort of see where geodes are at underground. It's kind of a cool little thing. There's all the parchment, and last but not least, crafting them up. So yes, I can start to craft them individually, one at a time, slowly but surely working my way through them, trying to unlock all of the at least tier 1 spells and possibly tier 2 spells today. And there we go. It says, congratulations, you've learned all the codex could teach you. After doing that, we now just get a nice little bout of XP, which is nice because that does grant us a little boost of XP if we really need it. Now, I do want to get into the tier 2 glyphs. So this is going to require manipulation essence and water essence, but the hard thing to do, the copper machines. These are actually kind of challenging to get your hands on simply because of the cured rubber that's required. But you know what? Because I have all of my warp scrolls that I was able to buy from the villagers, I'm just going to go ahead and set this warp scroll to my home location and also this one to the home location. So we have 2 of these warp scrolls that can take us right back home. I know we can also use the /home command. This is one way we can do this. And I can actually make several parchments that allow us to get back to a location. And so I really want to mark a position out in the ocean. So I'm going to take a quick trip over to the ocean. And you know what? I could probably just use my glider. Time to start this baby up again and let's get out onto this adventure. Slowly getting there. I honestly probably could get there from running faster. But you know what? That's okay. Eventually we'll have a much faster way of traveling and we could probably just use an airplane. Oh my goodness. On my way over here, look what I found. There is one really like right here is the tower. There's a bunker, an underground bunker really, really close by. Okay, I'm going to keep a mental note of that so that way we can come back because there's still some really good loot in there. Ah, perfect. Yes, the lighthouse I think will be a great place to sort of set a 2 ocean spawn location. And so I think now what I want to do is go ahead and just shift right click with a regular warp scroll. And this is the one that we are going to use whenever we get back. Now, what I'm going to do is take our normal warp scroll, and this is going to teleport us back home. But this warp scroll is the important one because I don't want this one to get deleted. So instead of it getting deleted, we can actually upgrade it and make it permanent. To do this, we need to head to our enchanting apparatus, and we need to put a few things on to the platform. So a couple of ender pearls, some blaze powder, and then we just need to click the scroll in here, and this is going to stabilize this scroll, making it, well, last forever. And that is a beautiful way to teleport around. There we go. So now we have this like pass through that goes through it, and whenever we use this, it's going to create a portal home, or portal to the location here, a temporary portal like this. And when we go through, notice it just teleported me right back to where we're at, and it didn't actually consume this. We're teleporting back with our other scroll. Notice, by the way, this does still stay here, but it will eventually despawn. It has a like set time. And you may be wondering, can you send things through here? The answer is yes. Yeah, you definitely can, and items will definitely teleport directly to the location that you threw it into. So just something to keep in mind. And there it goes. It finally decided to despawn. Now, you can also use these scrolls to make permanent, like, portals. So that's something else to keep in mind. So long as you build a frame out, much like that was out of source stone, what you can do is you can place down a source jar nearby. It has to be near the portal. And then you toss in a warp scroll if it's in dimension, and if you want it to be cross-dimensional, you have to throw in a stabilized warp scroll. And another good thing I recommend doing is definitely labeling these things, so that way you don't lose what teleports you where. After getting back from that, I temporarily have set up what I would call a mixer for this. So it automatically keeps the water filled in, which is like the hardest part of the whole setup. And then we're just dumping the ingredients in. So I can take all of the kelp, that will get dumped in, it'll get automatically mixed, and then the product automatically gets spit out. And you can see we're just producing the rubber into the container. And the water is going to constantly be refilled because of the infinite water source that I laid on the wall back here. Now to get those tier 2s, just going to let this run up until we've got all of the ingredients ready to go, and then I can get those tier 2s. Now, tier 3s, I'm not as worried about just yet, simply because we just haven't progressed that far yet. Because tier 3 is going to require, well, a little bit more work. And that's because at the moment we have a tier 2 spellbook. We did actually upgrade to that, which was quite easy, just requires the nether. But to go up even further requires us to take on the Wilden boss. And we also need to get our hands on a Totem of Undying, and also kill the Wither. All are which of things we haven't really done just yet, as I've just been focusing on just building up just normal infrastructure here in the overworld. But this is going to be completely fine, because in my opinion, tier 2 spells are some of the best spells. Now for these, I'm going to grab some water essence, and then also 2 of the manipulation essence out of this. And thus, here we go. I'm slowly learning explosion, firework, place fluid. There's so many good ones. And name, which is a name tag forever. We also have invisibility, heal, conjure water. All of these are so good. And there's some new ones too that are related to create itself, because we do have a Ars create add-on in here that is really cool looking. And there we go. I now have learned all of the tier 2 spells, and this is where our spell book is starting to look pretty nice. Now I have all of those spells unlocked, but actually utilizing spells still come at a significant cost. For example, the break spell. Like if I'm going to do projectile break, and let's just say we want to amplify it a little bit, and we also want to put a little luck on here, it's going to use quite a bit. And if I actually use this, well, we can only use it like 2 or 3 times before we can't use it anymore because we don't have enough mana. So how do we actually increase the amount of source we have available to us? Well, I'm going to have to upgrade my gear a little bit. Now, don't get me wrong, the mana ring that we actually got lucky and found is really nice because it does give us a boost in our actual mana that we hold, and it also gives us a boost on our regeneration. And having this maxed out is going to be fantastic down the road. But our gear does play a huge role in this, and also the enchants that are on our gear. Now, to upgrade our gear, we will be using this setup right here. And I'm going to place down a source splitter. And then I'm also going to place a splitter right here that is going to go on top of this. And this is where we use our Dominion wand. And I'm going to click here and just click. That has bound this to this location. And then click here to here. And then I'll click here to the jar. And this allows this jar to send source into this jar. And this is how you can actually move source around. We're going to need this source because we're going to need to be able to upgrade our gear to tier 2. Right now it's tier 1. Tier 2 is where we need to go. And if we had gone to the end, well, then we could upgrade it to tier 3, but we're not there yet. We'll get there. It's just a slow roll. All right. We'll get there. And this right here is like our first time being introduced to source in the actual cost of doing the enchanting apparatus enchanting. So yeah, this is interesting. It does use a little bit of source, like I said, to be able to do this. And there we go. Now we're up to tier 2, which does grant us some bonus slots, which we are going to want to utilize. And if we also take a look at the base stats, notice we have like +1 regeneration and 30 mana. Whenever we upgrade this, we basically double that value. And when we go up to this, we hit it again with another +1 regen and also 30 more mana. There we go. We're going to be doing a lot more of this enchanting because we need to now start focusing on threads. Now, I did notice there's a pretty cool thread in here that actually gives us back tank pressure. The thread of pressure, and it does utilize a back tank. And that's pretty darn cool, allowing us to use our gear and not have to swap out for a darn back tank anytime you want to use anything that uses pressure, for example, a potato cannon or the extendo grip. To make this thing, however, we are going to need to make a calibrated precision mechanism. So we'll place down all of these onto all of our platforms. And this is the first time we're utilizing, I think, all of the platforms. So I've got to go all the way over here, and then a precision mechanism in the middle, a little bit of source being used, and we're going to be making our first calibrated precision mechanism. Pretty darn cool. And this is going to be utilized, I think, a lot later on too, like to make source motors and all of the things that integrates Ars into Create. Like I said, there's just going to be a lot of different processes that are going to happen and that are going to utilize the enchanting apparatus, this being one of them and most of the threads. Now, I think I got a good selection of the threads that I can actually make at the moment, and I do want to apply these, but to be able to apply them, we're actually going to need to do one more thing. We've got to actually bring some magical life into this world. That's because we have to actually have the full-blown logs to be able to do this. So I am going to need to make these saplings. And so to be able to make the saplings, well, we just need to toss in the sapling with the current essence. So for example, fire essence, we have the abjuration essence, and then also the earth essence, for example. But we also need some polymorphic fluid. This is water with the polymorphic catalyst as a part of this recipe. We do get 4, which is going to be more than enough for getting all of the saplings we need. So let's take a canister, or just some buckets. Some buckets will be fine. And what I'll do, let's go ahead and place a little hole right here. And I'm going to fill this with water and then just toss this in, and it turns automatically into that polymorphic fluid. Now, I also did include actual mixing recipes, so you don't have to do this in world. You can actually use Create to handle all of this too. But yeah, now for the moment of truth, let's just toss in our sapling and then also the essence. All of the ingredients combined together should give us the sapling that we need. There we go. Now to grow these trees up, well, I mean, it's going to be quite simple. We can use a grow spell. So like touch, and then we have grow. And then if we applied like anything else, I think it'd be fine, like AoE. But I think just clicking on this alone is going to be good, and applies a bone mill effect. And yes, I do need these logs, so I'll be sure to grab all of the logs. And yeah, the tree is going to slowly start falling down. And this will grant you with more saplings. And so now we just need to make the 2 tables. So I have the scribes table and the alteration table. Typically the scribes table is where you would actually make your individual glyphs. But it's not the way you do it anymore. So there we go. So I'm going to take this, and we are still going to actually need that table. I'm going to figure out, where am I going to put this thing? Maybe right there. That's a good place for the alteration table. And then maybe over here we can put the scribes table. It's not that big of a deal. The scribe table is really only going to be used whenever we need to inscribe a spell onto something. Now over here, if we put in our gear, we have a tier 2 and a tier 1 slot. The first thing we put into this, I'm going to put a tier 2, which is going to be the back tank. And then I'm going to put the thread of repairing on this to hopefully help repair our gear over time. But we do have some tier 2 slots on just about everything except for our boots. So I do want to prioritize those. So like spell magic is a tier 2 thing I really want. Spell power is also a tier 2. And then we also have speed and step, which I'm fine just being a 1. So that should give us step up, and then also some Starbuckle speed, which will be very nice. And then, like I said, tier 1 slots, I'll put 1 on the head. Let's see, we can do spell power on the head, not a big deal. I'll take that. And then on our leggings, we could put the magic capacity, which will give us a nice boost in that. So all of this stuff added together, there we go. So now we have a bit more speed, base speed. We also now step up, so that means blocks like this, I should just be able to walk right up and not be stopped, which is going to be so nice. And now we also have like the more damage. Like for example, spell power increases damage in many other aspects, but damage is one that you really notice right off the bat. So for example, a harm spell is going to be dealing a bit more DPS. Now, I am really curious how this like pressure tank system works. So while we're holding this, does it actually give us back tank pressure? I'm curious. I don't know, like typically this would not be a green bar. Like if we have a back tank, for example, and we did fill a back tank, let's see, by, for example, connecting this here and letting it fill with a little bit of pressure, whenever we pick this up and we actually have it in our back, notice it does show the reserves here. So yes, maybe this is only like gonna give us pressure if we're actually using the tech gear. Which is something we will work towards. But that is a bummer. I was really hoping that it would give us back tank pressure right now. Because without back tank pressure, this just takes durability damage. Now that we've gotten most of that out of the way, there's still a lot that I've kind of worked my way through, and we'll get to that as we continue on, specifically with like enchanting and things like that. But as of right now, there are some cool spells that I want to play around with and definitely test out. Like I'm noticing, like from the Ars Technica mod that's in here, we have the polish, so we can polish things. There's also fuse, which looks really interesting. So if we do like touch and then sensitive to specifically touch the items that are on the ground, and then fuse, this right here allows us to do mixing recipes, which seems so cool. And then we can also do heated. So if we actually wanted to heat the things that we're trying to mix, we just need to apply the heat, which is normally allows us to smelt. So heat or furnace, I think it is. What is it actually called? It says allow smelt. So smelt. After that. So I'm assuming this does that recipe, like a mixing recipe. So a way to test this is like zinc. We do zinc, and we also have copper on the ground. And we throw the two down like this, and then we use that spell. Oh, now that was wicked. Wait a minute. I gotta see that again. Hold up. So yes, you do toss them down, and this is doing a heated mixing recipe and just crafted brass for us. And I'm assuming if you apply AoE, like for example, you have the more AoE you add to this, the more it will do in one batch. So if I throw these all down, I wonder how many it will do. It did a lot, actually, like almost half the stack there. That's pretty cool. And I'm assuming it's the same thing for the polished. Like if we have a bunch of like rose quartz and we just wanted to polish some of it on the fly, we could just drop it down like this. Oh, and it is just polishing it all. What in the world? And there we go. All of it is polished up. I think I would still stick with the fan though. And then we also have press, which that one would probably be one of the most used. So this right here, let's get some iron, throw it down and press. Oh, that is so sick. It's just like a portable press that's just available to us. This is going to be so helpful. And so this allowed it to do 32 iron sheets from a stack. Like, not bad. Now, another one of my favorite spells that we can make utilizes this same mechanic, which I kind of like, but this is actually built default into ours, and that is the smelt spell. So we just want to send as much of the AoE as possible here, as I do believe this is actually what increases the amount of items that do get smelted. And so we hit apply and we throw down all of this stuff, and let's just see, we want sand and we want to smelt a stack of sand on the ground. That is not what I wanted. Okay, so that did not, that just smelted all of my stone on the ground, which is another thing that ours can do. And I think it's just because I had this backwards. So yes, it needs to be smelt then sensitive. And now it will smelt the glass like that. Now I'm over here putting together all of these spells, but I won't be able to use them all that effectively, but there are some things that could help me. For example, the Ring of Greater Discount is something that I can make. It's not too bad, and I could make more than one of them, potentially. And then we also have the Amulet of Regeneration, which will give us even more regeneration. These two things are definitely worth getting made. It's going to be another thing I have to make here. Now with all of these things made up, oh man, things are going to be a little bit nicer. So the ring here, I'm going to get rid of my Bastion ring for this. And then I'll also utilize a Curio slot for that. So this gives us like +2 bonus regeneration, but also now certain spells don't cost as much. Let's, for example, go down to the smelt. Like right now, this is the cost with the discounts applied. But if I take off the ring, we'll notice that underneath this spell, it is a little bit more expensive. So it is kind of nice that like these do help reduce that cost of those spells. Now this is really just the start. And of course these spells are going to be a little bit more expensive because we're just using our raw spell book to do these spells. But in the future here, as we start to progress on, I plan on making some very specialized tools, and those tools can be inscribed with these spells, and we do get discounts on those spells. And it's going to allow us to have some really nice high damage output spells, which I plan on using, especially to fight, well, a few of these bosses that we're going to need to fight. So now I hope that is something you're interested in. And of course, if you are, be sure to click that subscribe button if you haven't already, and give this video, guys, a huge thumbs up. And hopefully you learned something new today, and I really do appreciate you. Don't forget to comment down below, by the way. And now, without further ado, it's time for us to thank the amazing supporter of today's episode. And that amazing thanks, well, that is going to go out to Dr. Razzie. Thank you so much for your amazing support and choosing to support me over on the Discord by becoming a Discord premium member and just supporting my content in one of the best ways possible. You absolute boss. And guys, I look forward to seeing you all in the next one. And as always, thanks for watching.